All right, it's 8:30 p.m. IST. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. For me, it's exact noon 12. For other three, the speaker and the co-host that I have, for them it's morning. Hopefully, for some of you, it's night. This represents the global participants that we have for TEG, this particular initiative. As I always briefly introduce TEG, some of you have been from the very beginning, some of you joined maybe midway, some of you are here maybe for the first time. So I'll briefly introduce TEG, and I started leading startup and entrepreneurship SIG of IIT Bombay Alumni Association uh, in May 2023, and we had this initial meeting where we decided to start an initiative which could connect alumni on this front, broad front of startup, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And we decided to start with the Entrepreneurship Gyan talk. One idea was to create a platform where people can seek synergies, explore synergies, but also seek some kind of mentorship guidance from veteran entrepreneurs or business leaders or policymakers or academics. And TEG not only focuses on startup or per se business, it also focuses on policy side of it, academic of it. So it's not only 0 to 1, 1x to 10x startup mode, but also maybe on other aspects of startup or businesses. And if you see, we have now over 5,000 plus participants in this TEG broad ecosystem that we have developed, out of which around 80% are IITB alumni. And we kept it open to others so that others can benefit from IITB alumni and whatever we are developing as initiative, TEG as an initiative. And the remaining 20% are non-IITB alumni or students and participants or enthusiasts per se. And luckily, a lot of them, kind of have been with us from the very beginning. And they started seeking synergies, and we started having these discussions about what more can be done apart from these talks. So we decided that okay, we need to also have some kind of global meetup kind of a thing, in-person meetup, not just online talks. So because we already developed a community, we are over Telegram, we are on WhatsApp. I mean on social media itself, we are 2,000 plus community. So we have been planning since 2024 to have an in-person meetup, and this year finally we have decided to go ahead with that plan, and on November 14th and 15th we will be having the first TEG global meetup in Hyderabad. So you can save the date, although the save the date official email has already gone. But in case you didn't receive it, or you are non-ITB alumni, or you weren't aware, maybe you can use this as a platform to save the date as well. And the idea has always been the same, and this is something I always discuss with my other co-hosts. I have Rajan and Rishi, also IITB alumni and co-hosts for TEG. And the idea always has been, who is eligible to give Gyan? Who should be giving Gyan? Because I mean, you will find a lot of master classes happening on entrepreneurship, a lot of courses these days happening also on entrepreneurship. But we have been very picky about who should be allowed to give Gyan, or whom we consider that he or she should be giving Gyan. And I am 100% sure that one such individual, one such veteran IITB alumni, distinguished IITB alumni, is with us, Raj Mashruwala, or popularly known as Mashru. So without wasting more time, and taking his time to speak, I will ask my co-host Rajan, and also a TEG mentor, to formally introduce his C75 batchmate friend, Mashru, of course, because he knows a lot better than me or Rishi about Mashru. So to you, Rajan, please go ahead.
Yeah. So as Professor Vaibhav says, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to another interesting session of the Entrepreneurship Gyan. Tonight, I have the special pleasure of introducing someone I have known for over 50 years. a batchmate from our legendary class of 1975 at IIT Bombay, or as we humbly call ourselves, the class of 75, the GOAT batch. Now I know what you are thinking. Every batch says that, but we have a particularly strong case. And tonight's speaker is Exhibit A. Raj and I started out as neighbors in Hostel 4. For those who know the hostel system at IIT Bombay, in the same hostel means you share everything. Mess food of questionable provenance, exam panic at 2 in the morning, and lifelong bonds. At some point, however, Raj moved to Hostel 7. I like to tell people he moved because he couldn't handle being next to me. But knowing Raj, he probably just needed a larger territory to organize. Because if there is one thing Raj Mashruwala has done his entire life, from Hostel 4 to Silicon Valley to the corridors of the Indian government, bringing people together and getting things done. After graduating with a B.Tech in mechanical engineering from IIT Bombay in 1975, Raj went to UC Berkeley for his master's and then did what any self-respecting IIT alumnus in Silicon Valley does. He started building companies. First came Consilium, a pioneer in manufacturing execution system software, where he led R&D and professional services from inception. Then came Media Computer Technology and ASIC Design House. Then Yield Up International in semiconductor equipment manufacturing, and the man holds patents in object-oriented modeling for manufacturing systems, which, for those of you who don't speak engineer, means he literally patented better ways to make things. But the big chapter came with TIBCO software. Raj was part of the founding team and helped build TIBCO into one of the world's leading enterprise integration and real-time analytics companies. He built and led the worldwide sales and marketing operations from scratch, rose to chief operating officer, and eventually served as executive vice president in the CEO's office. Under his stewardship, TIBCO went public, grew to over $1 billion in annual revenue, and became a global technology powerhouse before its acquisition by Vista Equity Partners. Most people would call that a career. Raj called it the first half. Because what Raj did next truly reveals his character. After retiring from TIBCO and his very comfortable life in Palo Alto, Raj got a call from Nandan Nilekani, our superstar IIT Bombay alumnus, who all of you definitely know. Nandan was leading India's audacious Aadhaar initiative to give a unique digital identity to every single resident of India. And Raj didn't just write a check or offer advice from afar. He packed his bags, moved into a small apartment in Bangalore, and volunteered as one of the founding technical members of the program. For nearly 2 years, he served as chief biometric coordinator, slogging it out in the trenches, helping design, build, and roll out what became the world's largest national identity system. That is not a career move, ladies and gentlemen. That is a calling. And the giving back didn't stop there. Raj transitioned into venture investing as a partner emeritus at Prime Venture Partners, one of India's leading early stage funds, working closely with entrepreneurs across technology, healthcare, and SaaS. He has served on the boards of Sintel, Guavus, Delta IT, and Healthify Me. He served as chairman of the IIT Bombay Heritage Foundation, the director of the Center for Healthcare Entrepreneurship at IIT Hyderabad, serves on the board of the Peninsula Open Space Trust and Ekatra Foundation, received IIT Bombay Distinguished Alumnus Award, and honestly, listing Raj's contributions is a bit like picking the phone book. You know it's important, but at some point you have to stop and just say, this man has given more than most of us can imagine. Now, for all these accomplishments, what strikes you most when you spend time with Raj is how genuinely humble and personable he is. He's a man with a wealth of knowledge on every subject under the sun, but he wears it lightly. He's the glue that has brought our class of 75 alumni community together over the years through countless initiatives. And when he is not mentoring founders or strengthening institutions, you will find him spending weeks cycling through breathtaking routes around the world with his cycling buddies or trekking through the hills of California and beyond. The man who helped build $1 billion company and a 1 billion person identity system apparently still hasn't run out of road. Tonight, Raj will be sharing his insights on a topic he is uniquely qualified to speak about. Founders trait, what do VCs look for? Having been a serial founder, a COO who scaled a company to $1 billion IPO, a venture capitalist at Prime Venture Partners, and a board member of numerous startups, Raj has seen the founding journey from every possible angle. There is truly no one better positioned to tell us what separates the founders who make it from those who don't. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a very warm TEG welcome to my batchmate from class of 75, my former hostel mate, a serial entrepreneur, a nation builder, and one of the most selfless leaders I know, Raj Mashruwala.
Thank you, Rajan. I was afraid that you would actually rag me because you didn't get a chance before, but thanks for this generous introduction. Good day to all of you, and thank you for joining between this busy sports season, World Cup, NBA final, White House UFC boxing. Just that lots of attractive alternatives to listening to this Gyan. But if you allow me, let me try to spin my own version of me. In my heart, I'm actually a romantic, and my journey is shaped by a desire to touch the sky. What do I mean by a romantic? I love exploring. I love jumping into something I have no idea about, or no background in, or that is none of my business. Let me give you a few examples. I literally fell in love with computer programming when Professor Isaac taught us algorithms in the 4th year. Those were the days when the digital computers were new and the sex appeal was in hardware. I actually ended up spending Friday nights on working on Mints 2. That was the largest computer that IIT had at those days, when my wingmates were doing all-night parties. But life was never the same again. My entire life basically got shaped by the few classes that Professor Isaac took. Moving further on, each of my first 3 startups that Rajan mentioned were in an entirely different field. The first one was software, the second one was equipment manufacturing, the third one was ASIC chip design. Why? Why did I sort of jump around? It was basically that each provided an opportunity to learn something completely new. I was comfortable showing up with little prior knowledge. And in fact, that was the thrilling part. Learning from the beginning and doing things that I had never done before. A similar incident occurred about 15 years ago. I was in Mumbai and I got a call to attend a half-a-day seminar in Bangalore, organized by Nandan, when he first took charge of Aadhaar. Everyone was trying to understand what this national ID concept could be. At the seminar, on the spot, I decided I wanted to get involved. And that meant leaving my family back in the US, moving to Bangalore for an indefinite period. I had no idea how I would contribute, since I knew nothing about government ID schemes or biometrics, but I dreamed I could make a difference. We decided we would build world's largest ID system with the volunteers coming from the industry. And to recruit them, we set 4 requirements for the volunteers. We told them they won't get any pay, they won't have a title, we really can't tell them what their job would be if they join, and we also can't tell them how long they will be here. So basically, we were asking them to leave their current job, possibly family, and move to Bangalore for no money and no fame. An interesting thing was that we collected world's most brilliant guys, the brightest and the craziest. Like an old Apple ad, we attracted the dreamers and the misfits. Today, every single guy from that original group has gone to create new ventures, either for profit or for social goods. Why am I telling you all of this? Because any successful founder also needs to have these traits. The startup journey is long and arduous. So when we started the venture fund called Prime Ventures, we created a scorecard for founders' traits. And we score every founder during the due diligence. Before I share that list, let me set a little more context. You would know that the 3 top valuation criteria for any VC are founder and a team, second, markets that they're going after, and third, the kind of a product and technology they have. Because we fund early stage companies, and early stage companies normally mean that they're young founders, they have innovative solutions, and little track record. So there's really little historical or empirical data to make a decision to fund or not fund. In my case, I end up actually giving 50% of the weight to these traits because nothing else is really visible at that point. And hence, these traits basically determine for me whether the deal is going to happen or it's going to die. I will briefly discuss these traits, but then I want to take a few examples or how we put that in practice. And if you have questions on what those traits mean, we can take them up in the question and answer sessions. Let me take a moment and share my screen. Just bear with me. Oh, I guess you can't see it still, right?
We saw it for a while, and then now
Yeah.
we can't.
Okay. Hang on for a second. Can you?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Okay.
It's
yes.
not in the it's not in the full screen mode, but we
Okay,
can.
I
If
will
you want,
do
you
it.
can put in the full screen.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, great. So this is a big laundry list, and I'm not going to go through all of them. I can share this slide in the chat or another way. But I'm going to take a few that a lot of times I find that the founders didn't do a very good job on. One of them is the storytelling. And by storytelling, what I actually mean is when they talk about their products, when they talk about their numbers, when they talk about the markets they're going after, what's an addressable market and what's the UPC and all that, really are they turning this, spinning into a story that's an interesting, engaging, gripping, and is it inspirational? A lot of people don't do that because they think that this is all about numbers and focus so much on quantitative stuff rather than talking about really how this fits in the bigger picture in their own lives. Other area that routinely I also see, particularly for IIT guys, is what I call the Dhanda mindset. This is the kind of the jugaad part of the stuff. We being very technical, a lot of times to us, just building a superior product is really the startup. And in reality, it's really much more than that. It's about figuring out what are the kinds of road bumps you're going to get, what are the potholes you're going to show up, and how am I going to go around them? How do I going to do this dhanda? How am I going to find shortcuts? How am I going to really beg, borrow, steal, whatever I have to do to keep the company going? And the companies invariably are going to go through lots of bumps and really lots of hard times before it kind of turns around. The third area that also I find that a lot of, particularly people in India who are focused on service business, tend to miss out, which is that a lot of them really understand customer from a standpoint of what their problem is. They can hone into the problem, they can find a really good solution, and they can actually solve that customer problem. However, building a company and particularly building a product actually means how do I take a specific instance, but I build a solution that actually deals with a class of problems, not just a specific customer, but a group of customers who may have similar problems. And it's a product that actually one thing that handles all of them. And this is what I sort of mean by this customer obsession and product gene. Just ability to generalize, ability to think what's really a broader problem that they're going to solve. The last thing I'll sort of spend a few minutes on is this building to scale. Again, a lot of people, and this relates to management side of it, as well as really dealing with expanding the market itself. On the management side, can they really hire good people? I always tell guys that if you end up hiring B-class guys, they're going to hire even C-class. So every time when you end up hiring people, you have to hire people who are better than you. It's not an easy thing. It's easier said than done. It's not an easy thing to do, but you have to find people who are better than you. And as a result, the scaling, a lot of companies that I see, the scaling is the one that ends up being a big challenge for them. I'll stop here. And really what I want to do is talk about how we measure these things. It's good to say that we kind of share things, but but how do you measure it in a few meetings that you have or a dinner that you go with? So we do a few things, few types of questions that we ask, which actually help us score on that scale. One question that I regularly ask is what I call the introspection question. The question sort of goes this way: is what has made you who you are today? It's not about reading what's in a LinkedIn profile or talking about the stuff that you have done in your college or in extracurricular activity. What I want to find out is, are they self-aware? Do they really know what really shaped them? Where did they get their inspiration? How did they get their inspiration? Uh, and trust me, this has become one of the most telling actually question and then answer for judging how good the founders are going to be. Another thing that we actually do is what we call a mini TED Talk. It's asking them to do a short talk on what they, company, and the market would look like 7 to 10 years from now. What we're trying to see in that presentation, in addition to the communication side of it, is can they actually dream? Can they actually think about what the company could become 10 years from now? Particularly going beyond the current product they have, going beyond the current market they have, going beyond the kinds of people and the team that they have. This too actually has become one of the keystone of how we end up actually evaluated. Let me also talk about two founder stories that actually, again, gives you a different aspect of how we sort of evaluate that. The first story actually is about an IIT Bombay guy. There were two, both the co-founders were from IIT Bombay, but this story is about one of them. They were building something deep tech. However, one of the reasons why we actually ended up funding them was not of the technology, but who this person was. During this conversation, we noticed that he was missing one arm. And when we started talking to him about what happened, we found out that he and another friend of his were near a body of water, and this other friend decided to go in the water to swim. And unknown to him, there were actually crocodiles. And one of the crocodiles actually got hold of his friend. So the CEO actually jumped in the water to save his friend. And he did save his friend. However, in that process, he lost basically his arm from elbow down. He had to be amputated. Interestingly, that didn't stop him. When he started looking for a prosthetic arm that he could buy, he did not like any of those. He did not like what was in the market. So he decided to build his own. It took him over 2 years and many, many iterations before he finally built something that he was happy with. And honestly, that was probably the single most reason why we funded him. Because we believed through this story that he has the grit, he has the passion, he has the perseverance to really run a company that he was planning to do. He has gone through many different versions of his company. He's been doing quite well, but it is really that trait that has actually kept the company alive. The second example I want to take is of a really a passionate young dude who grew up in India, went to the US for his undergrad, and came back. And he came back wanting to change the world. He wanted to make an impact. And so while I was working with him, he decided that one of the areas he wanted to look into was the nutrition, and particularly nutrition for Indians. He had observed, coming from upper middle class background, that India is going through, on one side, a major health crisis. People are getting diabetes, heart diseases, becoming obese. Um, and this was a group that had enough to eat. And then we had another 50% of the group that didn't have enough income. And they were barely getting around. So he decided that he really wanted to understand how Indians eat. He understood the first part, namely how the middle class and upper middle class actually has their diets. But he wanted to understand the second part. What he did was he decided that he's going to live with the average salary, and that time it was 350 rupees per day per person. He was going to try to live and experience what it means to live in that price. So in Bangalore, he basically took up a little room that normally is reserved for domestic servants. Started living first for 6 weeks in Bangalore in 350 rupees, working and including eating. Then, to understand how the rural Indians live, he went to parts in Kerala and lived there for several weeks at 250 rupees a day. He came back realizing what it means to live in basically for the poor Indians, as well as he understood what it means to have sufficient money to eat. And what he started focused on the health side has become now a $50 million company. So again, if you notice, we're not looking at the person's technical ability. We are not looking at even what kind of background in terms of education background he has. We're looking at what these guys are in their heart, in their genes. So just to summarize, the founder's psyche matters to me when you are raising the money. Many founders focus on the product, market, and technology, and then unaware of actually some of the most important decision criteria that the VCs look for. I'll stop here, and then we can actually take more in question answer, as well as in some of the informal discussions that we can have. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Raj. It was a really fantastic and useful talk for the participants, and of course, a lot of them were applauding while you were talking. And coming to the Q&A, we already have a couple of questions, but I think people are more enthusiastic about your role as Chief Biometric Coordinator, probably, and your work with Aadhaar. So the first question actually is about that. In fact, from a good friend of mine, Shiva, and he's also he also teaches executive education programs with us. So his question is, what were the security standards for Aadhaar? Example, how did you prevent breaches from countries, that are anti-India, for example, and and maybe policies regarding these matters.
So first, overall, I mean, this was probably the number one issue that we had right from the beginning, given that anytime when you centralize so much data, and particularly so much personal data, you had to worry about the security. So if you look at Aadhaar portion of it, it has two main parts. It has the enrollment part. This is the time when you go to a biometric center, get your fingerprints done, etc., etc. And then you have a second part, which is the authentication portion. This is the time when you do your KYC or when you do your OTP. the first thing we did was we separated these two aspects. Second thing was that the entire data center was split in such a way that the main biometric portion, this is the enrollment portion, was pretty much completely off internet. So from a security standpoint, then at that point, the breach can only come from inside. And that was a serious issue, and we can talk about that separately, but it's not a technology issue as much as it is a personnel and people issue. When it comes down to the authentication side, what has happened is by that time, in a sense that you take the enrollment, you take the biometric data, and you actually the biometric data essentially get transformed into minutiae, into a different, in case of iris, actually it's a Fourier transform that occurs. So what you end up with a data that is not backward convertible. So that data, even if it gets leaked, is not as useful. And that's the only portion that remains kind of connected to the internet. So that's kind of how we essentially dealt with it.
Okay, great, thanks. Trishi, maybe you can take the next question.
Yes, incidentally, it's also from a batchmate, Asif Shahid. He asks, does a geopolitical view or an ideological view of an entrepreneur influence the decision of a VC funding decision, especially in Silicon Valley?
Sorry, can you repeat the geopolitical part of it?
In the Silicon Valley, if you have a specific geopolitical view or an ideological view, how does it impact their funding from a VC in a Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Ideally, it shouldn't, but it does. And particularly with the kind of a politics that's going on in the US, I think that it's unfortunate, but it does show up in even in the funding decisions. In the past, that was not the case. And personally, a lot of my experience recently has been more in India than in the US. And I find that in India, that has generally been not a major issue. We do worry about when funding a company, some of the other geopolitical issues in terms of what's going to happen with US and US's policies regarding tariffs, etc. But to be honest, that has really not affected as much as what shows up in a newspaper.
All right, thanks. So next question is from Neeraj, and he's asking about your role as a VC. So how do you normally do hand-holding with your units, and for how long? Do you have some sorts of milestones for hand-holding of startups? If you do.
Yeah. So first, we do have we start with, actually, let me go back a bit. If you look at our particular firm, everybody in the firm comes from an operational background. We are not bankers. None of us actually have any banking experience. All of us were in startups one or more times. So our whole focus has been a lot of handholding, a lot of help in terms of particularly early activities. We typically end up funding a seed company. And at a seed stage, until at least Series A, typically until Series B, we are pretty active. We tend to start taking less and lesser role at about Series B level because we feel that that's by that time, the other VCs have come in who have actually a better experience dealing with larger portion of basically growing the company beyond that. As far as seed to Series A is concerned, we pretty much have a monthly meeting with them. We have our finance guys who actually work with the company's finance quite deeply. One of the areas, again, we have seen quite regularly is that these early startups guys don't have really very good understanding of how to manage money. And so we have set up a whole framework, templates, etc., that we actually kind of get our finance people to go there and help them set that company up. We also end up spending time on marketing and on the sales side. We do less on the technology side, but we focus a lot more on how to really grow their business.
Great.
Next question is very simple. What is your definition of young founders?
Definition of?
Young founders. Young founders.
Oh, yeah.
Probably during your talk, you use this word "young founders," and
Yeah.
that's why the person is asking, "What is your definition of young founder?"
Okay. Yeah, that's all. Thanks. My definition of a young founder simply is guys who have less than 8 or 10 years of actually work experience. But a lot of people that we do fund are really straight out of college or very close to out of college.
Okay, great, thanks. And a follow-up question from Sunil. Actually, he's already put up. Is there any specific age group you prefer to fund founders? Maybe between 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and so on. That's his question.
Yeah. Short answer is no. Absolutely. We really don't look at a specific age group. What we do find, however, is different people from our team actually resonate better with different age groups. So we do have some young guys who actually resonate much better with somebody who is a 22-year-old. And we, from a mentorship, from basically helping them grow, we tend to actually make sure that those guys continue that. I'm one of those folks that for example, let me take an example. We have one startup that's actually focused on sports and games. And I'm not one of those guys who really understands how people do virtual gaming and gaming in general, right? So I'm the wrong guy to help them.
No, I mean, yeah, good to know that. In fact, as a professor, as a researcher, I'm also getting more and more research question on what's happening with the virtual world, virtual gaming, and all those stuff. Yeah, but I think, yeah, I mean, this is area for some, and not for the others. Yeah, that's all right. So, Hershey.
Yeah, the next question is from Manish Kulkarni. I think he's part of the IIT. He was part of the IIT startups cohort. His question is, medical devices typically have smaller markets, especially if your product helps the specialists. How do you scale such a company?
Yeah. So hi, Manish. I still keep on following your stuff, so I know exactly where this question comes from. And personally, I've struggled with this also at IIT Hyderabad, where we actually set up biomedical, basically device entrepreneurship startups. Fundamentally, the life sciences in general have a much longer gestation period. And as a result, it is much more challenging to really build a life sciences biomedical devices company. Having said so, really what one has to do is to figure out a few interesting niches that exist and how you kind of fit into there. So for example, if you notice that biomedical devices companies focused on the consumer side actually has done much better. Aura is going to go, I think it's just gone public or it's going public anytime now. And there are many device companies in that fact, right? What is more challenging is a device that actually going to a hospital, a provider system. And really I don't think there is any simple solution to it except to partner with larger distribution companies who can actually distribute your product properly.
Thanks. And I think a follow-up question from Anurag, and he's also asking about medical devices. So he says most medical devices and medical records need to be kept isolated from the internet and comprehensive restrictions on how the data is handled, stored, and isolated. So probably he needs your views on this.
Okay. Yeah. So first, I'm not a security guy. I know what HIPAA is, etc., but I'm the wrong guy. There are lots of people here who can actually tell you in nitty-gritty what needs to be done. But having said so, this is the new, it's not a new problem. It's a problem that's been around for a while. And between various standard security angles around non-repudiation issues, about encryption, etc. There are ways of doing it, but I'm not the right guy.
Okay. Rishi?
Oh, you removed one question. So the next question is from Rajvardhan Singh. From your VC lens, what makes a startup stand out in a crowded market where the customer pain clearly still exists?
I sort of go back to this issue of almost the DNA of the founders, because, and again, my experience has been a lot more about the early stage, and that's where I'm going to kind of stay in that segment of the startups. Reality is that most companies, when they start and when they end up, tend to be quite different. They do multiple spins, multiple basically turns while they're growing. So really what I focus on is how good are the founders, how good is their ability to learn, rather than a specific market or a specific product.
Okay. Great. And some people are asking about your contact, or maybe one person is also mentioning that he has an agentic AI startup and probably would like to get in touch with you. So do you have an open access email that you would like to share, or maybe, if you permit, we can share your, email ID with the participants, whatever works.
So you can share my ID direct on the chat, but I'm also available through Prime's main website. It's primevp.in. That may be the best way to actually contact me.
Sure. So people who are asking about his contact or how to get in touch with him, I mean, you already told it's better to directly go to the website and get in touch with him. Of course, we will not be able to take all the questions. We are trying our best to cover as many questions as possible. One interesting question that I saw is, Rajan Mani is asking, do you look at non-profit startups, as well? And the traits that you mentioned do also apply to non-profit founders as well, with some variations or not?
Yeah. It's a good question. At a prime level, we don't. At a personal level, I used to. Now both Raj and I are getting to an age where we need to start slowing down in investing, because all investing takes 10, 15 years, and in terms of for that to mature. So, but yes, that's the answer to your first question. The second question is, do the traits are relevant? Absolutely. I think those traits are actually even more important in some cases, because what I've found in a social startups for social causes is that the passion sometimes, or the focus is so much on passion, on trying to make this change, that you don't look at the sustainability. The example I gave you about this guy who wanted to do something about the health of and the diets of Indians. After going through that experience, he realized, rightly so, that as a startup, he couldn't really do very much about the bottom half. Their problems were very different. It cannot be solved by some software or a startup. And I think that was probably the most important decision he made, even though from bottom of his heart, that's what really he wanted to do. He really wanted to help the bottom 50% as a social startup. But he realized that that's not what he could do, or he had the competency to do it.
Okay.
The next question is very simple. Why aren't there more startups in manufacturing?
I'm not sure it's simple or it's complicated. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's not.
The question is
I don't
simple.
know
The
whether
answer is
that's the
not.
case. I'm not an expert, but if I look at our portfolio, I think it's reasonably well represented. We have roughly the same proportional as overall industry numbers in terms of the manufacturing side. So I really don't know whether there is that statement is actually true.
Okay. So I mean, maybe Nitin, you need to get in touch with some other person maybe who's working more in manufacturing, or maybe cross-check your statement itself. I'm not sure. Yeah. So there is a question from Rohan, and this is something I also asked you, Raj, when we were having this conversation, because there will be something for sure on AI. So this question is, what is the scope of agentic AI in bioengineering? How would one seek funding and attract customers for their SaaS? And of course, it's a big question. What is the right timeline for product development, customer hunt, seeking funding? I mean, I knew that there will be at least some question on AI for you on this space.
Yeah. I mean, short answer of all that is right now is the time to do this. How do you do it? Find a problem that you can really solve. There are plenty of situations where agentic AI in general, even in device manufacturing, in healthcare, even in manufacturing, meaning device manufacturing, where you can use AI. So I think that field is wide open. To be honest, at this point, everything in the world is wide open because AI is just beginning.
Well, thanks.
Rajan, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Because
please.
Actually,
thanks for letting me put in this question. It comes from actually Prashant Ranadevu. Raj knows very well. Right. So Raj, Prashant says, great job, well covered as expected. But his question is, based on the list of traits and evaluation and any examples of where you went wrong and the learnings from the same.
Good. There's,
That's a softball question. Just kidding.
It's Rajan, it's an interesting, it's a very good question, right? And I'm trying to remember whether it's Churchill or one of the British politician actually says this thing, that if they get about 55% of the decisions right, they consider themselves genius. And VC is no different, right? If you get more than half of basically a little better than a random chance, you end up being a genius. So we get lots of them wrong. We think that we get less wrong than competing VC firms, but we do get plenty of them wrong. And what do we learn? We learn all kinds of stuff. And we just hope that we don't make the same mistake again, because there are plenty of other mistakes to make.
So the next question is the next question is from Sunil Ravipati. I think he has interacted with you in the past. So his question is, what is one thing Indian origin or operator founded US startups get wrong when going after enterprise healthcare buyers, such as payer or provider?
I haven't directly funded a US startup company, So my experience is more about the Indian startup trying to do something in the US. Um, and there, what I found was the US, particularly US healthcare system on the provider side as well as on a payer side, is is pretty unique and complex. And so, for example, on the provider side, unless you can figure out a way that the provider can actually charge more to the payers, to basically to either the Medicare or to one of the private insurance companies, it's really hard to get that particular product into a provider system. So, so it's not about how good is your product as much as figuring out how the payer provider system, the financial network is working in the US, and figuring out how your product is going to fit into that system. To me, that's really the number one issue that I've consistently seen people fail at.
Okay. Oh, good to know that. And now Sharmila is asking, I think something you tried to touch upon already. So investors seem to lean towards tech startup. Where does this leave startups, that are not that tech dependent or have minimal dependency?
Yeah.
Especially those are focusing on social challenges. So she wants you to share your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very valid, actually, criticism on the whole VC network. But we have to sort of think about the mainstream of a VC network. VC network is like a banking system. Namely, they're there to make money. So you'll go after areas where you can make money. Unfortunately, the societal needs are much more than where you can make money. And a few companies, a few VCs have gone into that area. I don't know really of any particular one that has been exceptionally successful in that area. But it is fundamentally a case where you're starting to look at basically a company whose main goal is not to make money, but to provide uh, a benefit to the society. We have to think with a different economical model, and that's really where the issue comes.
The next
Great.
question is from. Sorry. So the next question is from Ashish Kumar. He's asking, what is the difference between dreaming, realistic dreaming versus just empty dreaming? How do you differentiate
Yeah.
Khayali Pulao from
Yeah.
real?
Yeah. It's in some way, it's the difference between a genius and a madman, right? There are plenty of cases in the history where the guy was really on the border, right? One Go comes into mind. Sometimes you don't know whether he was and a great example in his case was he didn't sell a single painting of his until he died. During his lifetime, he never sold anything. It was actually, I think, his wife and brother who essentially managed after his death. Why? Because during all of his lifetime, everybody thought that he was crazy. So going back to this dreaming, it is really sometimes a very thin line. But I think the difference is, in many, many cases, the difference is if you dream, you have to work hard for that dream. It is not a question of just saying, I have a dream, and why is not my dream not getting realized? So, and it is, the bigger the dream, harder you have to work at. And that's really where I think a lot of people fail. The dream is right, it is something achievable, but they lose hope.
Great. So we are almost in time. So before ending, no, I don't want to end it on failure and dreams getting shattered and all. So my final question would be, your advice for students, because a lot of students also end up joining TEG talks, for students of IIT Bombay or otherwise. and
Yeah.
professionals who are alumni, maybe they're in their 40s and 50s
Yeah.
and want to move to entrepreneurship. So just
Yeah.
advices for both the strata students
Yeah.
and then for
So,
professionals, and that
right.
with that we can end.
Yeah. Vaibhav, that's actually a very good question, because I do believe that entrepreneurship and startup is not for everybody. It has a whole lot to do with the kind of a DNA you have. Because there are people, and as a matter of fact, when I look at just in my family, I'm very different than my brother. And I think my brother would not have done as well as being an entrepreneur as he has done on a professional career. I mean, he built the Reliance's Geo network. So it isn't that he hasn't done anything in his life. He has done far more than even I have done, but in a very different career. So, and it goes back to the kind of things you like to do. As I said to begin with, I'm a romantic guy, right? I love exploring. And I think for anybody, the first thing I believe that they should do is to really assess self introspection of who they are. Are they comfortable? Can they sleep peacefully at night when they know that they have no money left in the bank and tomorrow they still have to pay their employees? If you think that you can sleep through that, then try being an entrepreneurship. Try doing an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I mean, with that, I mean, this becomes the talk in which we have covered the most number of questions, by the way. I mean, we already touched almost 25 questions, and
True.
that was not possible in any previous talk, maybe because of your diverse set of experiences and otherwise, and your ability to communicate as well very precisely. Thanks a lot, Mashru, for your time and your fantastic talk and all the learnings that you shared with everyone. And we are just 2 minutes behind the schedule, so I hope it's all right with you.
Yeah. So, Weber, one request that I noticed that there were a bunch of other questions. I'm happy
Yes.
if you can actually send me the questions with an email there. I'm happy to
Sure.
answer them offline.
Sure. Anyways, I have told the participants if they would like to get in touch, they already know the route, and anyone writes to me
Okay.
for your email, they directly write to you, they directly get in touch to you. I think that way
Sure.
it's much easier than providing them with a document
Yeah.
and so long as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.